Hello, Tom Levecchia here with the New Theory Podcast. So before we start, frankly, for those who are listening, thank you. It's an honor and privilege as we've been around 200 or so episodes. So I wanted to ask you to, when you're done with this podcast, please subscribe on the platform that you're on, whether it be iTunes, SoundCloud, etc. And then also, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review. Doesn't matter if it's 1 star or 5 stars with some feedback. We would love a review and feedback so we can learn more about the shows, how we're doing, and more from you. So today we got a very special guest, a returning guest, Vicky Oliver, who wrote 5 books on job searching, how to ask tough questions during a job search, and we had a great conversation the first time we were on, and we talked a little bit about our last book, but more importantly, the tough questions surrounding, what to ask and how to answer in order to get the job. But we're going to dig a little deeper today, and I asked Vicky to come on, and we're going to talk about how to really get a job nowadays, especially in the, hashtag #MeToo environment, as well as how things are. And there's also a lot of racially charged things happening. So, Vicky Oliver, welcome back to the New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Well, so it's kind of funny because I was thinking about you, and, okay, so let's just get to it. And here's the other part. I have a lot of entrepreneurs on the show and a lot of great professionals, and there's a lot of pivoting going on in people's careers. I think people on an average of 7 different, not jobs, but careers over their lifetime, which requires a lot of pivoting. And entrepreneurship is a career as well. So let's talk about first, how has the environment, if you were looking for a job, let's say for a female, right, female 20s looking for a job now, maybe versus even 6 months ago and a year ago, how has it changed or has it changed? And if so, why? And then lastly, third part of it is what questions to ask or how to sniff out the employer to make sure they're above board. So I know it's a loaded question, Vicky, but let's start off with that.
Okay. So, I feel like the job hunting market has changed sort of gradually, actually, for a long time, like over the past 5 years or 10 years even, because there's much more of an internet component to it now. It used to be that you got a recommendation from somebody, whether it was your first job or your 5th job, you got a recommendation from somebody, and maybe that person hooked you up with somebody, and then you went over there, you introduced yourself, and that was like a way in, And
correct.
That I call in-person networking, and I am a big believer in that still because so few people are doing it. So I think it will give you a leg up if you do that, if you can sort of mine your contacts, mine your family's contacts, mine your friends' contacts, and all the contacts of all the people you've ever worked for or with, and develop it that way and do relationship, your sort of relationship marketing, you're marketing yourself. And I personally believe in that, but a lot of people don't do it that way anymore. That's why it still works. But that said, there's much more of an internet aspect today, and you can be smarter about your search by doing it both ways, Spend time on the internet looking for a job, and also spend time mining all the contacts that you know.
LinkedIn and so forth, correct?
Yes, like LinkedIn. So, today people basically think of that as an online resume, right? You put your best self up on LinkedIn, your old jobs, the best professional photograph of yourself, it's your resume. And wherever you go, people are going to look there first. This is what you're saying about yourself. So you want to make sure it's really polished, really professional looking.
Well, and one of the areas you've been really strong on, like I said in your last book, 301 Smart Answers in Tough Interview Questions, you really kind of focus on, hey, how to get the job, and you just actually contributed and put a link to it, a great piece on New Theory about, basically putting your best self forward. So here's what I want to do, Vicky, right? So I'm on LinkedIn, and I put my, I get maybe a professional headshot or executive headshot done, clean up my resume a little bit. Do some outbound, go to some networks, and I land myself a few interviews. Now, the economy, respectfully, is doing a little bit better than it has been, So I think the pendulum is swinging towards the candidates' way a little bit. So, and again, talk about the Me Too and a lot of stuff that's going on in this country.
Right.
What are some tips where, hey, Vicky, I got a great interview with a company, 3 companies, and, what are some of the tough questions I could ask them about some policies? Or do I do Google reviews? Do I reach out to people? Do I shadow them? So I get 3 interviews. What's your recommendation for me?
Okay, so first off, I definitely think you should shadow people.
Yes.
I mean, take LinkedIn, right? You can see where the person worked before. Let's say you're going for an interview there at a company. You can look up the person who's interviewing you. And it's okay to do it, Look them
Correct.
up. They'll know that you did, but that's great. That's probably a positive,
Correct.
And then you can also see through LinkedIn who they know that you know. And then I'd go further. I would ask the people that you know about them. Do you know this person?
Smart.
Have you ever worked for her? What is she really like? What is the company like? Like, try to tell your contacts what you're doing, You don't want to
Correct.
blast it out in a post, but on a one-on-one basis, tell people that you're friendly with that you are interviewing there and try to learn from them. It might give you the kind of inside information that when you go in, it will help you shine because you know something. You know an anecdote, about that company or something, some kernel of information that you can bring with you. And I think it's going to make your interview go so much better. Now, of course, I just, want to say that you also want to do the kind of research, deep research on the company. You want to find articles about them. You want to find articles. Let's say you're interviewing with a hiring manager. Try to find an article. Maybe she wrote an article.
Makes sense.
And then when you go in, so this is a little bit contrary to what you said. I would not ask tough questions when you're the interviewing. I would give them softball questions, I would say, I would.
Yeah.
The type of things that they know you did a little research on them, but it makes you look smart. Like, I'm so happy to have read that your company, just hired 10% more people. How is that going? Like that type of question where it shows that you read something about them and now you're taking that knowledge and you want to know more. That's what you want to show. You don't want to ever go in and say, will I get a window office, right? You want to go in and show that
Sign
you
on
belong
bonus
there.
First interview. Right.
You want to show that you belong there, automatically, like you're part of the team. So the more research you can do, and the first-hand research of if you know someone who used to work there or if you know somebody who currently works there, even better, reach out to the person, say you're going for an interview, tell the name of the person who's interviewing you, and then just ask them some questions about it. How has it been? Do you enjoy working with this team? What should I know going in? That type of thing.
Now, I come from a sales background, and every sales job that I had, actually shadowing was part of the process. And there's a duality to it. It was for me to check out the job if I see I would like it. And then also, I believe the rep gave feedback for the most part to the manager, said, hey, here's how Tom was. Was I falling asleep at 3 o'clock in the car because it was too much, But point being is, I come from a shadowing background, and it's not very common nowadays. If you add, let's just say you're really, obviously we're all serious about a career, and you have not concerns, but you're really looking to your next job is really going to be a job you plan on staying for a long time, and it's your vocation. Is it a red flag if you ask the shadow and they're like flat out no, or is that something that is not so uncommon that if they say no, it's okay, but it's not really a red flag? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So I don't think you should, unless you are an intern. If you're a student right now and you're, let's say, a senior in college, and then you want to get an internship somewhere, then I think it's completely appropriate to ask if you can go shadow there for a week or whatever the time is and see. I think that's fine. It's a learning environment. You are a student. I think it's fine. But if you're not in that situation, I would not ask to do that. I would not ask to shadow people. I'm always, let me just say, my angle or whatever is to always try to get people the job. I want to get you the job. So I always, you know what I mean? I always advocate, like, get the job first, and then if you don't like it, don't accept the job, But I always want to say what to do to get a job. Yeah.
Okay, so so I'm loving this. Okay, so I get Vicky's book, right? And I listen to the 2 podcasts, and I get a great job, get a $25,000 increase, loving my colleagues, Bagel Club, walking around the campus at lunch, and things are starting to cook, right?
You're loving it.
However, they just don't really meet expectations in terms of maybe some stuff they promised, maybe verbally didn't happen, or it's not as challenging, or I don't want to talk about the black and white stuff of like not that it's black or white, but let's just say like a colleague harasses you or a boss harasses you. That's obviously like a whole nother discussion. But what do you do if in terms of you sign on for a job and you're unhappy for legitimate reasons that you believe? Is that something you bring that up to your hiring manager? Say, hey Tom, I love being here. Things are great. However, on the interview or when you onboarded me, we kind of discussed A, B, and C, and only kind of B and C aren't really kind of happening. What's cooking. Is that something that you recommend? When you on board, you're already there, and it's you're unhappy, or is that something like? And I hate to say this, the old school way is just kind of shut your trap and just collect the check for a while, and then maybe look for something later. Like, what are your thoughts?
Right. I do think it's a good idea to talk to your boss about the issue, about how it's a different job than the one that you thought you were taking. I think it's very important to do that. There are ways to do it and there are ways not to do it, but I think it's important to do it because you want to be happy, and if you're unhappy, you're not giving them your best all,
True.
You're just sitting there like, bristling with resentment. I was in a couple of jobs, I'll just say, where when I got there were some surprises, okay? Like, for example, I used to be in the advertising business, and I accepted a job as an associate creative director at an ad agency, a big ad agency in Manhattan, which is where I live. And then I got there, and they said something like, "We'll show your work to this other guy who was also an associate creative director,"
Oh.
And I said, to myself, that's not going to work. Like, we're at the same level. Why should I sort of be reporting to him, know? And so I sort of, I gently asked about it, and then I went to my boss in a calm moment, which is what I recommend. You don't want to do this in the heat of the if there's a lot of action happening, if new business is being pitched and there's a lot of commotion, that's a bad day to talk to your boss about something like this. Sometimes you just have to wait and swallow it for a while, Correct. I waited, and then I took, on a calm day, I went to my boss and I said, when you gave me the job offer, my understanding was that I was just going to be reporting to you and not to like this other person in addition to you.
Correct.
So did I get that wrong or blah, blah, blah? And he was like, no, you're making a good point. And I'm like, right, because this person is my equal, so I shouldn't be reporting to him and to you unless, for some reason you don't have any confidence in what I'm writing. He's like, no, I've got confidence. And I'm like, well, good. So then can I just report to you? And he said, yes. So a lot of it is just like being calm and, keeping your wits about you. And I just have to say, a lot of people who hire, they're not. That's not their first task is to hire other people, and they may be not great at sort of communications. There are lots of ways that things can get kind of messed up, and you end up like taking a job, and the expectations are different. Like there was another job I took later than that, where I was a creative director somewhere, and they were sort of expecting me to also do the art, but I don't draw. That's a problem, right? So,
correct.
So there again, it's like you just have to sort of take the job and kind of work to smooth it out. Like once everybody loves you and you're doing well, then you can sort of smooth out some of the kinks.
So I love it because, like I said, get the job. I get on board. You're in your honeymoon phase with the job. However, you're uncomfortable about something. You vocalized it. and you vocalized it in a way where you weren't like a jerk. You know, you're like, well, I don't want to report to him because I have an ego. No, you kind of put it on the person, your manager or whoever, and said, hey, to him or her, hey, this is what's going on. So you put it on them, and when they realized they maybe went against what they, what they initially agreed to, if they're a good person, it seems like they're like, oh crap, you know what, you're right. You report to me, I got confidence in you. Or if they don't have confidence in you, it kind of builds out that conversation and makes it a little easier. Okay, so now I want to kind of go a little further along. Now, What happens as an employee, and it's tricky because I felt this way for so long, but then as an employer, I had some bad experiences, so I want you to weigh in. So what happens when you're at this job, and it's just not the right fit, and you become disengaged? Now, okay, now, I hate the whole, it's so funny because people will be out one Tuesday, then the next Thursday, half day, their dog's sick, their cat's sick, their son's sick, their grandmother just died, all these things happen at once, and they're going on Instagram. Let's call it what it is, right? Yeah, and I remember this one guy. He had 5 grandparents, but that's another discussion. But long story there. But my point being is, I don't want a disengaged employee. I don't want you to just be kicking through till you find that job, right? So, but the other part is, as an employee, I'm scared crap of me saying to you, hey, Vicky, I just want to come clean. My engagement level is not where it needs to be, rather than me kind of do the whole sick grandmother thing and look for another job. Can we kind of have an exit strategy where I'll work, 3 days a week with you, 2 days to find a job, and let's be professional, and I'll give you my all because you're helping me. But my concern is a lot of employers look, screw you, you're not fired, because you can technically let somebody go if they kind of say that to you. So what do you do as an employee? You don't want to do the whole sick dog thing, but you don't want to, what do you do?
Right. So I would never actually ask somebody if I could kind of take part-time while I look for another job. I just wouldn't do it because I think it's a huge risk.
Yeah, the truth.
But I mean, look. I used to stuff portfolios in shopping bags and sneak them out of. Sneak them out of the ad agencies, et cetera, during lunch. So I think if you are disengaged, I think either you owe it to yourself to. Sometimes it depends on the company. Sometimes there's a way where you can switch laterally. You can make a horizontal move into a different team or a different department. And re-engage that way. If you're feeling really bored all the time, you dread Mondays, you just can't stand the idea of going back to work after a 2-week vacation, that type of feeling, that is an indication that something's wrong, you don't like it. And I think that the easiest thing to do is to try to switch within the company if there's an opportunity to do that. If it's a big enough place, there might be an opportunity. And then if that's the case, then you would probably have to talk to your boss about it and say, I'm interested in this job at this department, and explain why, and try to get your boss to support that move. That would be the easiest way to do it. Another thing you can do is you could try to go to your boss or to others in the company and try to get some additional training. A lot of companies will give additional training if you ask them. If you say, I need to learn how to speak better in public because I might have to do it in front of the whole meeting, will you pay for these classes? Sometimes they will pay for classes, and that's another way where you can at least get something from them,
Got it. Well, okay, so you answered the question, but and you answered it well, but I would like your weigh in on this because, again, as an employer, I had some tough experiences. Because, as an entrepreneur, if I employ somebody, and this is just a straight truth, if I pay you, it comes out of my pocket. So it's not like I'm a manager of the corporation, and it doesn't come out of my pocket. So that's why as an entrepreneur, I'm a little sensitive to this, and I think other entrepreneurs are as well. What's the let's just say I want out. Let's just say I just don't align to the beliefs of the company. I just don't align to the beliefs of the manager, and I want out. However, I'm a good person, right? And I don't want to do the whole disengage, sick dog thing every week. What's the appropriate way and you don't want to maybe lose money by going part-time either. But what's the appropriate way of, and you're uncomfortable telling your boss, what's the appropriate way to do it? Is it maybe save your vacation times, to look for a job? Is it to maybe tell the new employer what's going on and say, hey, can we Skype later at night, or can we meet off hours? Like, what's your
I would definitely do that. I would definitely do that with the new the potential new employer. I would absolutely Skype off hours, do it on your own time. Go out and make the call during your lunch hour, this type of thing. But with your employer, your current employer, another thing I think that we haven't talked about is just setting goals. And
True.
A really great employer will set the goals for you, especially if you're if you're just starting in your career. But most
Correct.
employers don't do that. They don't really set the goals for you. And so therefore you have to set your own goals, And I think I'm a huge believer in goals and trying.
Correct.
Trying for them. And, I think if you set goals, it makes the job much more interesting, I'm going to try to increase sales here by 10%. Do you think that's a reasonable goal? Great. If I get that goal, will you increase my responsibilities? Can I get a small raise? This type of thing. I think it keeps you much more activated to have small goals that you can jump over. And on the other side, if you're an employer, I think if you can create goals for the people that work for you, you're going to keep them more activated and more engaged.
Makes sense. Okay, so really, and if I'm hearing you correctly, is you treat your career as an entrepreneur. You're responsible for your own career. So if you're disengaged, and you don't have goals, maybe say, hey, could I have some goals, or let's talk about that, or if you're disengaged, maybe take some ownership of it and get other skills that you can develop, like Toastmasters or some other skill that they might pay for, so you get value of the job. I really wish my former employees listened to you, because that's just the high road, and I love what you're saying. Important question: Can you re-engage after you disengage in a particular job, or that ship kind of sails?
I think you can.
Okay.
When I was in advertising, the advertising business, I really became very interested in management, which is why I started writing these books that I've written.
Good.
And one of them is called Bad Bosses, Crazy Coworkers, and Other Office Idiots. Okay. I became really interested in management, and I wanted to be promoted, partly to learn how to manage other people. And It wasn't just about money for me. It was about learning how to engage with other people, how to supervise people, be part of a team and everything. And I think, in that situation, what I did is I often asked, I would just go in and ask, to be promoted, and then sometimes the answer was no, no, we're going to promote this other guy, or we're promoting from the outside, or whatever. So what I ended up doing was I looked for mentors, because I used to work at I worked at large ones too, but I often worked at medium-sized ad agencies. I would look for mentors within the company, not necessarily my boss. Your boss is not always on your side.
Yeah, your boss should never be your mentor. I had situations where they were, and I kept them as my mentor once I no longer worked with them, because I got lucky. But I think it's a categorical no to have your boss as your mentor. I agree with that, Vicky.
Right. So, but, a mentor is anybody that you take advice from. It doesn't even have to be somebody who works in the same company as you. It would be better if the person is in the company, because they know, how to get through things.
The dynamics,
but if the person doesn't work in the company, it doesn't really matter, as long as they're helping you with their advice. So sometimes by reaching out to mentors of mine in the company, they sort of showed me or expressed a way that I could get my goals accomplished, and I would follow their advice.
Okay, so I love it. So we literally went from the searching for the job with cleaning up the LinkedIn, to vetting the employer, to being during the honeymoon phase, to staying appropriate, looking for a job, and then now you touched upon how again you make perfect sense. I love the way you approach it, and respectfully, you know this because you lived it. Ad agencies, Madison Avenue, especially at the time you worked there, were very white male centric. Probably, just the martini lunches and so forth. So how did you navigate, and more importantly, how did you become successful in an environment back then where there wasn't a lot of, opportunity per se, because a lot of shut doors? So how did you kind of break through?
Well, it's interesting you asked me that, because one of the ad agencies where I worked, there were no martinis, but it was all the team was about 20 people, and they were all men except for me. That was really odd. And so anytime there was a female product, they would come to me and say, okay, here, you write about this, woman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like representing all women to this group of guys. It was kind of weird, to be honest. It was kind of weird. Yeah. But in the course of the time that I was in the field, things loosened up, and there were more people coming in of all nationalities, more women coming in, which is all to the good, because we're supposed to be representing the country,
Correct.
Right. So I think that sort of helped, I mean, the thing, if you're a woman and you're listening to the program and you're working right now, like, the thing you can do is help your fellow women get jobs, Don't be part of the all-boys club.
True, and I know nowadays it is obviously much different. And I don't mean to go back too far, but is it appropriate, or, like, let's just say you go to for a position and you want to find out, the company's makeup. Can you go to the EO office and say, hey, what is, how can you best find out that you are going to be working at a company that is diverse? Because obviously you're going to go to an office, you're going to be brought into a conference room, and you're going to leave. You're not going to really be able to kind of hang out. What are some good ways to find out that if a company is diverse and maybe meets more of your needs?
Right.
It's a tough question, but what do you recommend?
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, the best thing to do is like that in-person research we were talking about, where you find somebody who used to work there, who currently works there, or a former employee who can tell you straight up, no, this is still a boys' club, or no, this is like a great place to work. You can find out usually that information. It requires going deep. It just goes deep into research. And this is why I always say to people, like, let's say you have a headhunter, and the headhunter calls you, and they say, oh, we have this fantastic interview set up for you. You always want to take your time learning about the company before you actually walk in there. So if you have a choice and somebody says, okay, you can get this date, or this date, which do you want? I would say take the latest date. Take the latest date, learn the most about the company that you possibly can before you go in there. And it will help you. You can target your questions appropriately. It's okay to say, I've heard through the grapevine that this is sort of a boys' club. Is it, and how does that manifest? You know what I mean? It's okay. You don't have to be aggressively defensive about it. It's just you're asking, a reasonable question. Companies have reputations. They know what their reputations are, and it shows actually that you did some homework on them.
You bought again. There's like a ton of. I'm gonna probably listen to this 10 times myself, because you delivered a ton of pearls, and even as an entrepreneur, as an employer, it reciprocates to where I want to hire the right person, I want to get the right person. Now that the economy, my last question for you is my feeling is that the economy is getting a little better, right? And the job market in some spaces are going to shrink a little bit. Can you, if you look at the person who's listening and they're looking for a job, can you ask for that sign-on now? Can you ask for that extra week vacation? Can you ask for those dental benefits? Do you think we're there yet? We can start asking for those extra accoutrements, or are you like, hey, no, listen, obviously, ask for stuff. It doesn't hurt to ask, but I still think things are kind of tight. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think things are like kind of coming back a little bit.
First of all, I think you definitely can ask.
Correct.
But there's a timing to it. So the time to ask is when they are offering you the job. So now you've had your 3 or 4 interviews with different people at the company. They love you. They want to bring you on, okay? This is the time to really think about the things that you want, that will make you happy. Like, I think a great thing to ask for is a title if you can, because titles are free. Right? So if a title is the thing that's going to make you happy, then you should ask for the title, Ask for a good office, with a door if they have them still. Ask for that because sometimes, it might get crazy and you might have to close the door, Ask for stuff. If you want transportation vouchers, ask for them. Ask for the things that will make you happy, and all they can do is say no. But it's not going to impact them giving you the job. They will say, no, we can't give that to you right now. Come on board. Maybe we can talk about it in 6 months or whatever. And then get in, and in 6 months bring it up again. Politely, but bring it up again.
I absolutely love it. Vicky, it's kind of funny, everyone, because Vicky and I talked a little bit before the call, and not that we necessarily had a set agenda because we had her on already, but I just literally this is just a free, I did not write one question down. This was literally off the top of my head. I think it's harder to get a job now, and Vicky provides opportunities for you to get that job. And then just by listening to her speak and her great books, it shows you how to keep that job and to strive in your career. Vicky Oliver, thank you so much for coming back on the New Theory Podcast.
Thank you for having me back. It was really fun.
It's my pleasure, and I want to have you back soon. So we'll
Perfect.
be in touch. And
it's a deal. Fantastic.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of the day.